there's a few things for me. The first one is, why on earth did he sign a 6-year extension deal 3 years ago, back in 2018? There was no need for that. And that's why he's in this situation, because he's got 3 years left on a 6-year deal, which he didn't have to sign. He was 25 at the time. He could easily have signed a 4-year deal extension, and he would have been in a very strong position right now instead of being in a weak position, because with 3 years left on his contract, you can understand why Daniel Levy is saying, like, you're not going anywhere. You've got no leeway here. You've got no strong position whatsoever. So that 6-year extension deal for me made no sense at the time, and even less now with all that hindsight that we have. Now that he wants to go, and he's almost like in that corner and can't move. The other thing is, I just don't want to imagine what would happen if Paul Pogba, for example, was doing the same at Manchester United, and how the English press would react to that compared to the way they've reacted for Harry Kane.
Rio Ferdinand actually has had a bit of a spat, well, maybe just a back and forth, you could say, on Twitter with Jamie Carragher about that same situation, about had Paul Pogba done it. But I'd like to come to you on it, Mark. Do you think that this changes anything with Daniel Levy? Do you think this has any type of influence over what his plans are anyway for Harry Kane?
The only thing that will influence Daniel Levy is if Man City offer to pay what Daniel Levy thinks that Harry Kane is worth. And right now, we're all being told that Man City aren't going to go anywhere near the valuation that Daniel Levy's placed on Harry Kane, which we're told is £160 million. Man City won't pay anything like that. And that is the big difference. They could be as much as £60 million apart. So, Harry Kane can do this as long as he wants, but I don't think it's fair from Harry Kane to do this to Tottenham if Tottenham aren't being offered what he's worth. If Man City had offered asking price and Tottenham had still refused to budge, then Harry Kane has got grounds to say, look, this isn't fair. But right now, if Harry Kane is worth £160 million to Tottenham and Man City are prepared to pay just over half of that, then Harry Kane doesn't have a leg to stand on, because Daniel Levy will say, look, they're not prepared to pay what we think you're worth. So if Man City don't think you're worth £160 million, why do you want to go to Man City if they don't think you're worth what we think you're worth? Now, obviously, there is room for negotiation and room to manoeuvre in this, but it's created bad blood. And Daniel Levy, as we know, has a reputation for being very difficult in the transfer market. He thinks that he can outdo all the big clubs and make them pay absolute top dollar for all his players. Now, I think he's matching Man City, because Man City won't fall for that. So we have a problem, we have a stalemate, and Harry Kane could be the victim of that.
Do you think Mark is playing a dangerous game, though, as well? Because obviously that still is a lot of money to be offered for a player. We know next summer there could be players like Haaland available much cheaper, Mbappe available on a free. And by getting that money in now for Spurs, they could actually look to get a good replacement in time for the new season starting. Do you think it could be a dangerous plot from him?
Absolutely. It's a dangerous game that both are playing, really. And I think from Tottenham's point of view, yes, you're right, they could get the money in now and spend it on a replacement, but who do you buy to replace Harry Kane? If you're selling for maybe £120 million, the player that you might think is worth buying at £50 million this week could be worth £80 million next week, because everybody knows that Tottenham will have money from Harry Kane. And as you've seen in the past, when Tottenham sold Gareth Bale to Real Madrid in 2013, when they get a lot of money in, they don't often spend it very wisely. So if you're trying to replace Harry Kane with less than what you think he's worth, it's going to be difficult. I don't see who Tottenham go for. You're not going to sign Lewandowski or Lukaku. None of these players are going to go to Tottenham. So who are they going to get to replace Harry Kane? They're going to get a player who's nowhere near as good as Harry Kane. So Tottenham can't really win in this unless they keep Harry Kane for one more year and hope that he scores 20 goals again.
Jules, what do you make of this whole situation? One player that I have seen mentioned is Dusan Vlahovic. I know that the Spurs fans are pretty keen on a player like that coming in, but what do you make of this whole situation and this power play from both sides?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating situation. I agree with Mark completely on the price, though, because let's say there's a gentleman agreement, and one day Daniel Levy and I would want to believe Harry Kane. I don't think Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane is an honest, loyal guy, and if he says that he was told by Levy that if a good offer comes in, they will let him go, I want to believe him that is the truth. However, a good offer doesn't mean a discounted offer. It means like Oggy just said, the value that Spurs believe is Kane's value. And I think we all agree that Kane right now is worth his edge from what he's done for the last 6 seasons. Easily in let's say, the ballpark is 150 million. But it's not because someone comes in and offers 50 or 70 or 100 that Spurs will have to open the door and say, okay, we'll let you go. The gentleman agreement is we will let you go if the money is right on the table. And I really want to believe that Spurs will do that. Right now, this is not the case. So why would they say, okay, City have come with 100 million, so because of everything you've done for us, we're going to let you go? That was not the deal. I think the deal was, we will let you go, but the money has to be right. And right now, the money is not right. So in a way, you understand why Spurs are being quite strong on it. And for Harry Kane, then he has to understand that it's also in the interest of Spurs to get as much money as possible or as close as possible of the value of Kane himself.
Mark, I just want to come to you because I know that obviously you're on the ground when it comes to the journalists, especially up in Manchester. Just to go to that Twitter differing of opinions between Rio Ferdinand and Jamie Carragher, and it's something that Jules mentioned. Basically, Rio Ferdinand said if Paul Pogba had not turned up at United, there would have been uproar. That's pretty much in a nutshell what he was saying. Jamie Carragher disagreed, saying it's wrong to not turn up, but he shouldn't ruin his reputation and his relationship with the fans. How do you think that situation would have played out if it were a player like Pogba?
I think Jules is right. I think he would have been absolutely hammered by everybody because, Paul Pogba gets his hair cut or has his hair dyed, he gets hammered. There's certain players that are just unpopular for whatever reason. And I think, Raheem Sterling's another one. If Raheem Sterling had done this, in the past he did it at Liverpool in a certain extent by refusing to sign a contract. He was absolutely castigated. But Harry Kane is in many ways the golden boy of English football and he's the captain of the England team. But I do think in the terms of fairness, I think that other players, yes, would have been treated differently. And I think we'll see how it pans out this week because I don't think if you're under contract to a football club and paying your wages, I don't think there is ever a way you can be on the winning side if you don't turn up. No matter what your grounds are, they are paying you a wage, a big wage. You're representing a big club. You've got to turn up. You've got to turn up and find a way to move. But you can't go on strike. You can't not turn up.
How do you think it's going to get resolved, Mark?
I really don't know. And I think the guys would be the same. It's a tough one, this, because you're talking about Daniel Levy in Tottenham, who is a very stubborn guy. He's got 3 years left in his contract, Harry Kane. There's no reason for Tottenham to sell him. It wouldn't surprise me if we get to the September the 1st and Harry Kane is still a Tottenham player and he has to stick around for another year. But equally, I wouldn't be surprised if Man City find a breakthrough. But I think the big problem that City have got is if they're not going to pay the money, how are they going to persuade the likes of Bernardo Silva, Gabriel Jesus, Riyad Mahrez, all these players that are supposedly available to go to Tottenham? If I was any of those, I wouldn't go to Tottenham because they're not going to win anything. They're not even in the Champions League next season. So it's really difficult to find a way that this gets solved in the next 30 days.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.